Good morning to all our Youth Solutions family and supporters joining us for Coffee with a Purpose. Youth discuss mental health and the impacts of social emotional learning. My name is Gretchen Panacucci, and I am the Manager of Innovative Services at Youth Solutions, the nonprofit inspiring and connecting youth to achieve a future beyond imagination. Before starting my journey at Youth Solutions, I spent 16 years in public education as an educator, school counselor, and principal. During that time, I witnessed the increasing need for students to have access to a variety of services to support their mental wellness. I was fortunate to be a part of a school district that prioritized mental health and took action on ensuring that both students and adults had what they needed to thrive. As a licensed professional counselor, I've helped dozens of young people acquire the appropriate skills to deal with difficult situations. I am beyond grateful to have this opportunity to help lead this very important conversation. I am honored today to be joined by my co-moderator, Philip Mann, Director of Social Emotional Program Services at the Boys and Girls Club of Benton Harbor, and by our Jobs for Michigan's graduates, or JFG as we like to call it, panelists, Lydia Frazier, Manny Mesh, and Hannah Wyman. As always, they are the true stars of this coffee hour, and we will be hearing from each of them momentarily. Recognizing the importance of May as Mental Health Awareness Month, now more than ever, our young people need to find ways to stay connected. What happens when our young people feel disengaged, can't concentrate, and are having trouble achieving their goals? They may start to experience their energy drain and lack of enthusiasm for the things that once brought them joy. If these feelings continue, they may lose their desire to socialize, and relationships could suffer. It could lead to increased absenteeism at school, which perpetuates the cycle of mental stress. According to Mental Health America, Michigan ranks 27 out of 51 in terms of youth who have a prevalence of mental illness and lower rates of access to care. No one should feel alone or without the information, support, and help they need to be mentally well. With our panel, we will not only discuss the growing challenges in the lives of our young people and the effects on their mental health, but also social emotional learning, or SEL for short, which is a vital component to the Jobs for Michigan's Graduates program and the Boys and Girls Club of Benton Harbor. SEL helps young people acquire and apply the knowledge, skills, and attitudes needed to develop healthy identities, manage emotions, and achieve personal goals. A focus on SEL has also been proven to advance educational equity, which ultimately contributes to thriving workplaces and healthy communities. I am so happy to welcome Phil Mann from the Boys and Girls Club of Benton Harbor to lead this important conversation with me. In his role as Director of Social Emotional Programs, Phil created a 9-week program for youth that encompasses all 5 areas of social emotional learning, which are self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, and social awareness. We look forward to hearing more about this program later in our coffee hour. Welcome, Phil. It's so good to have you with us to share your knowledge and lead this conversation.
Thanks, Gretchen. It's great to have the opportunity to engage with young people in a discussion about the effects of mental health and how social emotional learning can contribute to the overall wellness of youth, including their mental health. By sharing their experiences and challenges, we can begin to break through the stigma and talk about support needed to help youth face with these challenges. With that said, I would like to introduce our panelists from the JMG program. First, we have Lydia Frazier, a junior at the Westwood High School in the UP, who also attends Marquette Alger Technical Middle College studying nursing. Secondly, we have Hannah Wyman, who is the chairperson of the Youth Solutions Youth Advisory Council and a part of the JMG program at West Michigan Works, Muskegon County. And last but not least, we have Manny Mesh, who is also a Youth Solutions Youth Advisor Council member and a JMG alumni and a graduate of Wendover High School. Thank you all for being here. We have over 40 attendees joining us today who are eager to listen and learn from you. If you guys are anything like me and aren't particularly fond of public speaking, I'm sure you're glad that we can't see all of them. But thank you all for being here and for the opportunity to listen to you all.
Thank you, Phil. I'm happy you all are joining in this important discussion. For audience members who wish to ask a question of our panelists, please use the chat function, as we will be monitoring it throughout the session and have reserved time at the end to ask audience questions. So now, with housekeeping aside and coffee freshly brewed, let's get started. First, I will ask each of our panelists to tell us a little bit about themselves. So Lydia, we're going to go ahead and start with you.
Good morning. My name is Lydia Frazier. I am a JMG student in the Market Alger Technical Middle College and a junior at Westwood High School in the Upper Peninsula. Mental health has been something I've been very passionate about for a while, and I'm really excited to be here to talk about it today.
Thank you. Hannah, go ahead.
Hello, I'm Hannah, and as you guys heard, I'm the chairperson of Youth Solutions, as well as our JMG, well, we're not called a president anymore, but I'm something similar. But yeah, so for me, I am studying my GED. I'm about halfway, maybe a little over halfway to completing it, and my goal is to become a music therapist.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Manny, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm Manimesh. I am a member of the Youth Advisory Council that we help with the events and everything related to JMG. And yeah. And with YAC, I've tried to participate more in helping them with what is happening. Like I volunteered for and helped at the CDC just not too long ago.
Great. Yes, we appreciate your help and support, Manny. Thank you.
This morning, our panel will tackle the topic of mental health, and we'll begin by hearing about their personal experiences and the stories to help us better understand the obstacles young people are facing when dealing with mental health challenges. To begin, I would like to ask the whole panel, what makes young people who are suffering with mental health not ask for help and support? And Lydia, we can start with you.
All right. The first thing that comes to mind is I feel that youth don't reach out because due to the fear of being judged or pushed aside. Especially with adults and the older generations who've grown up and been told just to kind of deal with it, and they don't really understand the effects of mental health because it wasn't such a prevalent subject when they were younger. So with an older generation that we have to go to and talk to, with them growing up so strong and pushing things aside, we feel judged when we reach out and we don't feel heard.
And Hannah, what are your thoughts?
I definitely agree with the fear factor. I think that a lot of people, there's definitely this stigma that if you suffer from mental health, you're crazy or you're lazy or, all these different things, you're not normal. But honestly, I think it's pretty normal to struggle and to have difficulties and even mental health to an extent. Everybody experiences stress. I'm sure everybody experiences moments of depression, but those of us, with mental health, it's like an ongoing struggle. So we're not really any different from people who experience those things, just that we experience them more often. And I think a big thing, especially for me when I was younger, was I didn't truly understand what depression and anxiety and stuff like that was. I, had heard about it when I was younger, but I didn't truly understand it. I wasn't educated on it. So I think a big important thing is to, learn about it and teach youth what it actually is and how to, help their friends and family members who might be struggling with those things, how to be there for them and take care of them.
Gotcha. And Manny, same question to you. What is stopping young people from asking for the help that they need? You're on mute, Manny.
Well, from what immediately comes to mind is with mental health comes a stigma of, or a social stigma that isn't good. It's like mental health, you don't talk about it kind of stigma. But with these young people, it's also the stigma and the fear and not understanding of exactly what's happening. So it's just not having the knowledge to know what's going on, and then the stigma of actually asking for help.
Sure.
Which obviously it's okay to ask for help. So
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate those responses. I heard a need for awareness and education, both in the youth space and with adults. And then the sense of normalizing that we all experience these things. And if we can help normalize that a little bit more, then that likely lessen the stigma.
Lydia, you recently took a mental health first aid course. Can you explain what you learned in the course and why you decided to take it?
So my biggest takeaway from the course was recognizing when a peer is going through a mental health challenge versus a mental health crisis, and what the difference is. And just like a regular CPR class, you learn when you need to call 911 or when you need to reach out for help. And not only that, but how to help a friend cope if they came to you for help. I know from personal experience, I'm more likely to go to a friend in a crisis than I am an adult, just because I'm more comfortable with my friends. And so I'm that friend that if a friend needs to go to and they're in a crisis, I know how to help them in that situation when I need to get them help, or if they're just going through a mental health challenge and they just need someone to listen to. I know how to pay attention to the signs. And yeah, it was a very educational course, and I think it would be really beneficial if more students could be educated in learning what a mental health crisis is versus a mental health challenge.
How long was that course?
We took 3 days and did, I think, 2-hour sessions. So 3 2-hour sessions. And we split it up. We did 2 days 1 week, and then we did our last day the following week.
Very cool. Hannah, from your experience, what are some warning signs in yourself and others that help is needed?
Oh goodness, I have so many. So for one, I think being tired all the time, not getting good sleep, not eating well, skipping meals, not being very sociable, kind of wanting to close yourself off. So I know a big one for me was staying in my room all the time. Also, for anxiety, having a pain like in my chest or right below my chest, apparently that's a sign of a panic attack, because everybody experiences panic attacks differently. But that was definitely one of the ones that I was surprised to learn about.
It's interesting you touch on both physical symptoms and more of the emotional of like closing yourself off in your room, but also those physical symptoms of recognizing things that are different physically for you.
Yeah, definitely. Also too, a big one I feel like is the music that they listen to, if it's just really kind of depressing or something like that. And like, I have mixed feelings on that, because on one hand, I feel like listening to music that you feel you can relate to can be very therapeutic. But on the other hand, I also believe that it can make it worse. So I guess kind of just seeing, how they do when they're listening to it can be a sign.
Well, I'm just curious now, Hannah, because you said you're interested in pursuing music therapy. Have you had any experience in that aspect yet, or and how music can assist youth or anybody in the therapeutic realm?
Only from personal experience, because, growing up with such bad like depression, anxiety, and everything, music was definitely the biggest therapy for me at the time when I didn't truly understand what I was going through or experiencing, because we didn't really know what it was or didn't put like a word on it. I didn't get the help that I needed until I was actually 19. And that was just the very beginning of the help that I needed. So during that entire time, music definitely helped me a lot. So
I agree with you, Hannah. Speaking from personal experience, music was my outlet, especially when I'm in like a low place or I'm happy or, you know, excited. Music, like, I just feel like like I can just express myself through music, and I just think it's a good outlet to feel what you want to feel.
definitely.
Is there a specific genre that works best for you guys?
I think it depends on what you're feeling.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Because like if you're feeling kind of sad and down and stuff, maybe having a slower, song, or maybe kind of more alternative or something like that. And then if you're feeling more happy, maybe something more upbeat like pop, things like that.
But interesting that music can be used as a tool for help and support, but also you said music can be could be considered a warning sign too. If someone is listening to more dark music or whatever, that could be a sign for adults to say, something might be going on.
Yeah, definitely. Just keep an eye on it. That's what I have to say about that.
Lydia, if you notice signs like being tired, not eating, and antisocial, is there a way to approach the subject with like a friend or a family member that you think might need the help?
So for me, when I notice the signs in myself, I will go to a friend or my school counselor, my parents, and I'll just say I'm worried that I'm just falling back into these bad feelings. I'll just talk about it. Sometimes talking about it feels better. But if I'm worried about a friend who came up to me, if it's a crisis, I will go to someone I trust, a very trusted adult, whether that's my parents or my guidance counselor, or their parents or somebody, and just tell them I'm worried about so-and-so. They're doing this. I think that they should reach out for help. And then I think the best plan from there would be how to execute that. Talk to the adult, how to execute that situation. Is it a situation where you need to call 911 like you would for normal CPR? Or is it something that they just need to talk about? That ties back to, is it a mental health challenge or a crisis? Do they need someone to talk to, or do you need to get professional help for your friend?
Got a follow-up question. Assuming you go through that process, how do you deal with the aftermath of talking to your friend afterwards?
Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. I feel like I've had an experience where a friend has come to me and I have had to go to an adult, and after they were mad for a little bit, but they were happy that someone was able to get help for them because they couldn't get help for themselves. So there was that initial feeling of, I thought I trusted you, but then they were relieved that they finally got the help they needed, and they thanked me for reaching out for them and being the voice that they couldn't be.
Yeah, that's super powerful, super powerful. And I think in a way you're framing it as coming from a place of caring. I mean, that's really what it is. You care about that individual and you'd rather see them get help than be hurt. And so if it's making those tough decisions to do so, it's doing the right thing.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and sorry, just to chime in too, with that, I feel when you're doing that, obviously you know the person well, so you'll know if you have to reach out, like she said, like maybe reach out for them, or know if you make those resources available to them, that they'll take them themselves too. Because sometimes even just knowing they're there will help them, give them the jump that they need.
And one thing that I'd like to add to is, in my mental health first aid class, we practiced over and over asking the hard questions. So are you thinking of hurting yourself or others, or are you thinking of killing yourself? And you doing that was very beneficial, because in the moment you have to ask those questions if it's a crisis. So just like practicing CPR, I keep referring to that, but just like practicing CPR, you have to practice asking the tough questions in those hard situations, because that could save their life.
For sure. And those are tough questions to ask. Working in the Boys and Girls Club, I have a caseload, and that is asking kids if they're suicidal is probably one of the hardest questions to ask. So I'm happy that you have had practice in doing it.
Yes.
Sounds like more people should have practice doing it too.
For
Yeah.
sure. Manny, can you share with us some of the challenges that you faced when you started the JMG program?
Yeah. Actually, when I first started the JMG program, it seemed like it was, I didn't really know anything about it. So it seemed like it wasn't something I was really interested in. And then I also had a lot of anxiety, social anxiety around the time too. So when we start getting into that stuff, I was, I'd say, out of my element when I first started in JMG. And actually, when I first started, I did try to switch out of the class, which my principal didn't let me. So I'm glad I stayed though, because with it, I was slowly, I was able to get out of my comfort zone to be able to come further and further and be able to do stuff like this.
How did the program help you deal with your anxiety?
Well, obviously with JMG, they teach us team building experiences, the leadership experiences. Like, I think those helped a lot, like where we all work together for stuff in groups and stuff like that. And then we also went out and did our volunteering things, which I like doing volunteering stuff even with my anxiety then. I still like to do the volunteering stuff. So it was something I liked, but it also I was slowly going out of my comfort zone further and further until I was comfortable with it, I guess, is kind of just how it went for me specifically.
Gotcha. Being part of the council, do you now talk with younger people?
I haven't participated in a whole lot of events because of my whole work schedule, but I have been trying to be part of more events kind of like this to try to get talk to more young people, because I usually with the YAC, if I can't volunteer and help at the event, I help plan with them.
Very cool.
Well, it sounds like you've come a long way, Manny, from the beginning when you filled out the course request form to switch out to now. So congrats.
Yeah.
Absolutely. To the whole panel, what in your opinion are some of the external causes contributing to mental health crisis in young people? And we'll start with you, Lydia.
The first thing that comes to mind is social media. I think it sets really unrealistic expectations for people, especially physically. I believe it's a big cause of problems such as like body dysmorphia or insecurities, stuff like that, that lead to more serious things such as anxiety and depression. And I think that especially if you are introduced to social media at a young age, you see it from a young age and you think that's how things are supposed to be. And that causes so many more problems than what we think it does. So I think that's a big cause of anxiety and depression, especially bullying over social media. So there's a lot of different things that come from social media that have a negative impact.
Lydia, I'm curious, what do you think the right age is? I know that there's a movement out there now to say like wait till 8th.
Yeah, I think it all depends on the maturity level of the child. I don't think there should be a set age, but I think parents should base it off of how mature their child is and explain to them that not everything that you see on social media is real.
How do you get high schoolers who are like obsessed with their phones to realize that social media is the cause of a lot of the problems?
I don't think that there's one set way of fixing it. I think that it would take a lot more effort than just telling them straight up that this is not how it is. I think that that's something that comes with time that they have to learn.
Hannah, what are some external causes that you think contribute?
Yeah, so I definitely agree. I think that social media is definitely one of the issues. I think something to help with that might be to really involve your teen or yourself or whoever, right, into some kind of a maybe class or something that kind of aligns with what brings you joy away from your phone or your electronics or the internet. So like, for instance, me, I love music. So it might be, you know, going and spending 30 minutes to an hour doing something musical or something artistic or crafty or whatever you like to do. And then really reflect on how did that make me feel after that versus spending 30 minutes on my phone. You know, did I feel better about myself? Did I feel more confident in my craft? Things like that. Another one I think that for me was a big one is when you're growing up, you're seeing how your parents not only talk to you, but talk to themselves. So like if your parents are like, I don't know, like, oh, you know, I'm overweight, or, oh, you know, I'm stupid, or, you know, just like words like that you hear sometimes people say to themselves out loud. Your kids are hearing those and they're taking those words you're saying and then they're saying them back to themselves. So I think that's a big part of it as well, is to be very aware of what you're saying to yourself. And not just outwardly, but really internally too. It's really important.
Manny, same question.
I agree, really do agree with the social. For me, what comes to mind is social media, and then there's just the bullying and cyberbullying, and other thing. And with that too is like with social media, like I said, it could cause, if obviously, well, with social media, it can cause like the body dysmorphia and amongst other things. And it also can cause young people to compare themselves to these people they see like on Instagram and stuff, when really social media is just like a highlight reel and it doesn't show like an actual way that someone's life actually is. So it sets I don't know the word for that.
Realistic? Is that what you're gonna say?
Unrealistic high standards for what they want to be, when everyone's human and we all have our issues, and they're just looking at a highlight reel, pretty much.
Yeah, so I'm curious, while we're still on the topic of social media, because I saw a great question pop up in the chat, and I feel like social media is so ingrained into our culture and into our youth. So I don't think it's going away anytime soon. But Julie Moore posed the question of, have you seen things on social media that can be helpful for mental health? And could social media be leveraged in a way that actually could be positive for youth?
Yes.
Anything? Yeah.
Yes, I absolutely believe
Yes.
that there are positives to social media. I think it also gives you the opportunity to reach out to people and create a community where all of you can talk about what you're going through, or just need someone to have a conversation with. And I also think there's a lot of good mental health resources that you can find through social media. So I do believe that even though there are negatives, there are positives.
Anyone else have thoughts on that?
I definitely believe there are positives too, because like, for instance, what are we doing now? We're talking to people about mental health, that it's okay to not be okay and to talk about it. And I know for me, like, if I am on social media and I see someone getting bullied or something like that, you know, obviously I try to know as much about the situation as possible, but then I try to stand up for the person still, because it's like, hey, no bullying is good bullying. Doesn't matter what it's about, it's not good. So I think that, you know, keeping in mind that there are good people out there on social media, you just got to find them. And, you know, you have just resources. Oh, sorry.
Nope, you're good. I didn't know you were still.
No, I was just saying there's resources out there, you know, to get therapy and get help. So,
Manny, did you want to contribute something?
Yeah, I would say, just like they said, there's the positive sides to it. So I think it just depends on where you're looking, really, and the way you make your feed show up too. Because a lot of these people, they'll, like I said about the highlight reel, they'll follow all of those. But if you look, you can find resources for your mental health on there too. You can obviously see like all the sorts of like coping mechanisms and everything and meditation, and then you can find other resources through there and find other people like you too within the social media. You just have to kind of make your timeline be what you actually need.
And being intentional with connecting to the right things. Yeah. Well,
Yes.
you. I appreciate you guys sharing that. So shifting gears a little bit, Hannah, you joined this panel last year when we discussed the topic of mental health. You wrote an opinion article that was published on the 74million.org website. The piece was part of Dear Adult Leaders, Listen to Youth, a series produced in collaboration with America's Promise Alliance to elevate student voices during the pandemic. In this series, students wrote open letters to adult leaders and policymakers about their experiences and how, from their perspectives, the American education system should adapt. Your letter focused on the issue of supporting students' mental well-being, particularly through the COVID-19 pandemic. So Hannah, in your letter, you spoke of your own experiences and your suggestion that every school should really offer an informative mental health class. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, please?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like I was saying before, I think it's really important to learn how to identify the signs as early as you can. Because like I had said, I didn't even start just beginning to get the help that I needed until I was 19. And, looking on my life, so much could have been helped if I had gotten it sooner or understood it sooner. So yeah, I definitely think that having some sort of an informative class in schools on that, maybe kind of mandatory, would be super helpful, because so many kids are going through so much that not even their parents know about, So yeah, I definitely think that's important. Something that I also, my heart is really in as well is having like a safe space in the school for those who do really struggle with those things, especially maybe anxiety. Maybe they're having some social anxiety because they're around too many people, or maybe they're and kind of starting to have the signs of a panic attack and they need somewhere to go. Because I know for me, I do get panic attacks, and usually when I'm out in public, the only really place I can go to is like a bathroom stall, right? Because like it's closed in, you're not really around people really. And so having a place to go, especially in a school where you can go and then just kind of like try to meditate or just calm down, I think is really important.
That's great. Yeah. So I hear the need again for that informative class, but that's really, again, going back to creating awareness and that sense of normalizing again, that mental health is real. Everybody struggles with it. And then creating safe spaces is an important place for people. Thank you.
Gretchen, can I hop in with a question?
Sure.
So Hannah, how do you, working with the Boys and Girls Club, there's like 10% of kids who are 10% of members who actually come and will say like, oh, we have a problem. Can we talk to you about it? And then there's like the 90% who everyone has issues, but the 90% that don't want to come and talk about it. If there were this kind of program put into a school, how would you get like the members, the students to buy into it?
I think that kind of a similar situation to what we're doing right now, having the youth come in and talk about, obviously not everyone is super open to talking about it, but I think that the kids that do understand it is such an important topic to talk about will be willing to talk about their experiences. And if maybe not kids in that specific school, because maybe they don't want to get bullied or something, maybe have kids from another school come in and talk about, that stuff. Because then they'll know, okay, the people from my school aren't hearing me talk about it, but a totally different school is. I don't really know these people, right? So I think that's really important, is seeing your peers go through the same stuff that you're going through and knowing that it's okay to talk about it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so according to Bridge, Michigan, rates of depression and suicide among Michigan youth were already rising when the pandemic hit. State and federal officials are now warning of an emergency in youth mental health. Yet 1/3 of Michigan students with mental illness don't receive treatment, particularly in rural areas. Many school districts are trying to address that problem by putting more counselors, nurses, and social workers in schools. Adding new school-based health centers would make those efforts more effective, experts say, because the centers are better equipped to assist with the most complex cases, freeing up school staff to handle other needs. This next series of questions is going to touch on some pretty heavy topics, including suicide. We recognize that this can be triggering for some people, so please take care of your needs during this time on the call. We're also going to include the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline number in the chat as a resource for everyone. Lydia, this question is going to be directed towards you because you recently experienced a traumatic event in your community in the middle school. Would you mind sharing what happened?
Yeah, so 2 weeks ago, there was a death by suicide in our middle school. And during that time, the whole district was put on lockdown. Personally, I was in the auditorium when I was in the lockdown. We all thought it was a drill. We didn't really know what was going on. And then once we found out that it was a serious thing, there was a lot of panic. And so between the panic that we were feeling as we were trapped in the auditorium and then adding what actually happened onto that was a lot for everybody in our school district. And I really want to thank our school district for providing as much help as they did. They were very supportive with giving us the next day off and dealing with not only the anxiety that we received during the lockdown itself, but also taking a moment to process the child that we lost, because everybody knew him. He was a great kid, and it was a really tough loss on the whole community.
Yeah, that sounds like a really challenging thing. I'm just curious, like, what type of mental health services are within your school, are available to students? And it sounds like the school did a great job with handling the situation afterwards, but I'm curious about what services are available to students.
So before the event, we had our guidance counselor and a social worker that the school provided that you could go to at any time and talk to. But directly after the event, we got the next day off, and everyone in the community was given access to grief counselors, therapy dogs, our guidance counselor, and there was staff from the school there who was willing to listen to anybody who needed someone to talk to. And then even through the following week, once we went back to school, the school took our library and shut it down for just grief counselors, and teachers were very open to talking to whoever they would like, or if anyone needed to talk to, they could talk to a teacher, or if you just needed to go to the library and talk to a counselor, you were given that access, which I think was really beneficial. So I think giving us the access to the grief counselors and being very clear and vocal that we could talk to anybody we needed to was very beneficial to everybody. And we had grief counselors in the middle school and elementary building and the high school building.
No,
Do you
thank
feel
you.
like,
Oh, go ahead, Phil.
sorry, do you feel like the resources and the help that they got was enough?
Yeah, I feel like there's never really a perfect amount of help, but I feel like there was a lot of resources available, enough to get all of us students comfortable with talking about it, especially because for me, talking about it helps a lot. So when I was having a rough time at school, I went and I talked about it, and I felt a lot better. And I know that other students felt the same way.
Yeah, that's good. That's good to hear that the post event supports were there. But really, we want to prevent that from happening, right?
Yes.
That's our biggest thing. So I'm curious, at your school, like, what do your teachers do to help understand and help students in the classroom process their emotions? And how important is social emotional learning in the classroom?
I think that social emotional learning is really beneficial in checking in on students. Personally, in my school, we only have maybe a handful of teachers who take time out of their class period and check in on us and see how we're doing and ask if there's anything we need to talk about. And other teachers just make it clear that they're there to talk if you need to. They don't really make it fit into their class, but I think that also talking about it like in class is helpful too, even if you don't want to, having that idea that the door is open. But at the Marquette Marisa, where I take my middle college program, in our seminars, we have seminars monthly. We do check-ins at the beginning to see how we're feeling. We also do, Megan does check-ins with each individual student throughout the week. I was doing my check-ins every 2 weeks. I would check in with her, tell her how I'm doing, tell her if I was struggling with anything in my classes. But also knowing that I have my guidance counselor to go to if I need to at school, if I can't make it to when I check in with Megan or I get to a counselor. I think that's really helpful, and I feel like talking about it builds social skills. And with no social skills, I think that's a big cause of bullying, because those who bully don't know how to cope with their own problems, so they're taking it out on everybody else.
Yeah, excuse me. Thank you for sharing. And just to clarify, Megan is your JMG specialist, right?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
Oh,
Megan.
Yeah, no, that's good. But I hear too, trusted adults, and Hannah, you brought that up earlier too, of really important for youth to have a trusted adult. And it sounds like with Megan as your JMG specialist, your school counselor, having someone you can turn to is really important. So Phil, we would love to hear more about the 9-week program you developed at the Boys and Girls Club. Can you please share us the impact that it has on the youth in the program?
For sure. So our program name is called Arrows. It's a 9-week program for our legacy sites, which are our teen center and our youth campus. And then we have school sites as well. So we double the time to 18 weeks, and then we cover a whole semester for the school sites. It's a 9-week program. We cover all 5 of the SEL topics, and then we add in 2 topics plus our introduction week. And then the 2 topics that we add in basically are like the main topics. So we're just finishing up goal building now. So we teach kids about goal building, what it looks like to build goals, and then how to actually accomplish those goals. Like, what steps do you actually have to take to get to your goal? Our next 9 weeks are going to be understanding emotions. So why do I feel this way? What's making me feel this way? And how do I overcome feeling this way? Every 9-week program has the 5 SEL topics, and then whichever ones we need to make our 9 weeks complete. As far as impact, I think self-awareness is the biggest thing that our kids are developing. It's very baseline now, because I've only been in this position for a year now. So we've only been building for a year. So we're still getting kind of like baseline how the kids feel about themselves, how they feel about the people around them. And then as we go on into the fall and then spring next year, we'll be diving into some more serious topics. But yeah, that's our program.
A great program.
Yeah.
I think that's really great too, because towards winter you get seasonal depression. So I think about those more serious topics is good to do towards that, end of the season and everything.
Yeah, so over the summer, my staff and I are going to be coming up with like the full curriculum for the year. So we will be taking into account those kind of things. And then like May being Mental Health Awareness Month, next year we'll be doing a lot more for that. And then we have the seasons for sports are interesting. So we have to kind of navigate around that, and then also help them deal with like, how do you lose graciously? How do you win graciously? These kind of topics.
Yeah, that's super important. I know so many kids that fail miserably. They don't take it graciously. So I think it is important to learn that, because that also kind of plays into mental health too, so.
For sure. Hannah, what are the biggest challenges that youth are facing, and how can the addition of SEL help address these?
That's a good question. I mean, I think we touched on a lot of the issues, social media, the negative side of it, friends and family maybe who are, struggling and not getting the help that they need. Because I feel like it's not just, what you're going through internally, it's who you're around externally. and whether or not they're getting the help that they need too.
Mhm.
But I think that the awareness is a big part of it, is knowing that that's a normal thing to go through and that there is help. Do you have any specific questions?
How do you feel like the SEL would help with those things? Like we talked about social media. So self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, how do these kind of topics, how would you use those to encourage youth to like be okay with social media, be okay with seeing these images and not judge themselves based on it?
Yeah, so I think that a big thing is for youth to understand that it's okay to unfollow people. And it's even okay to unfollow them for a certain time, maybe follow them again, maybe even unfollow them again. Like, it's okay. I know that there are definitely some influencers and stuff that I follow for a time, and then if I feel like it's affecting my mental health or maybe, I don't know, whatever, then I'll unfollow them for a time and then maybe follow them again if I'm doing better. But I think for me, especially on social media, I don't spend a whole lot of time on there. But when I do, like, I try to do my best to make sure that I'm following people who inspire me, or, you know, who are open to talking about their struggles, or, you know, I like it to be real and open. Because again, like, so much of it is kind of fake. It's the highlight thing, right? You're only seeing the good parts of somebody's life. And so of course it's easy to be like, wow, they're perfect, their life is great, when it's not, you know, because whose life is actually perfect? Nobody's.
No, no. Thank you for that. The next question is for everyone. It says, so social emotional learning encompasses internal family systems, the community, and those around. And there's so many people who don't have the support of their families. How do you think young people should go about teaching SEL to their families in order to gain that extra support needed? And we can start with you, Hannah.
Yeah, that's a tough question for sure, because I know that, you know, some of my family members, you know, I've told them like, oh, I have these struggles and everything, and they're super supportive and they're understanding, and they're like, oh, you know, I'm here for you if you ever need anything. I understand what you're going through. And then other members will be like, oh, you just need some sunshine, or, you know, you need to pray more. And it's like, yeah, all those things are great and important, but there's so much more that goes into it than just those things. So, I mean, I think it's important to do your best to be open about those things to people you know you can trust. And then maybe for just, you know, your other family members, just maybe mention a little bit, but don't really go into detail. Because then you never know when they might turn around and all of a sudden get it and understand, right? So then they can be more compassionate towards what you're going through. But I definitely think that having your circle of supportive, healthy people, you know, is definitely important. And sometimes, you know, there are people who just don't really get that at all. Like their family just doesn't understand, maybe not even their friends understand. And that's when I would definitely recommend, and I recommend this anyway, but seeking out a therapist and seeking out help for that, whether your insurance can help pay for it, or, you know, I don't know, but there are ways to get help.
Sure. Manny, how would you go about trying to teach SEL to a family to gain extra support? You're still on mute, by the way.
I really think Hannah touched on a lot of one key point. And two, it's, you want to find, you know, who is going to support you the most, and then you try to, with your family, try to introduce the subject to them. But some of them won't perceive it, obviously, like depending on who the people are, they might not perceive it right away. So you don't want to push everything at once, but you want to like slowly mention it, because like she said, eventually it might click. But if not, you want to find who you can trust between friends and family, and also reach out to your other resources if you can't find the support that you need within. Well, either way, you can reach out to other resources, but if you don't have support in a way that you would think, or in a way that you would need.
And Lydia, when young people reach out to us as adults, what do you feel like we should understand about the young people's needs?
I think it's important for adults to know when to give space, because not every child or peer wants to go into really a big depth about what they're going through. And I think knowing boundaries of what they want to talk about and not pushing them to talk about what you think they should talk about necessarily. And I think it's also important that adults have those positive conversations and check-ins with their children before it gets to a point where it's hard to turn around. So before there's a challenge or before there's a crisis, reach out to those students or your children and just have those positive conversations before it's too late, or there needs to be a professional to help if you can help first.
Yeah, and I think you brought this up earlier, Lydia, that while those conversations are tough, they're really important to have. And so,
Yes.
you know, adults, the awareness again, the knowledge around it, and then it's better to check in, right? Even though it's uncomfortable and could be uncomfortable, youth want that, and I
think it's important for adults to know that even if somebody seems fine, they might not be. They might be struggling silently, and I noticed that in a lot of my friends, where they seem fine all the time, and then they'll message me saying they're going through a hard place and they don't know how to cope with it. And it's just those things you don't expect. So even though someone seems fine, they may not be. And that's where I think it's important to notice the signs that we've talked about earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Something that has also been mentioned just recently is about bringing it up. I think it is so important to have people out there that just kind of bring it up, hey, how are you really doing? You're fine. Okay, but what does that really entail? Because I know for me, it's like sometimes I'll just be talking to someone and I don't really think to, tell them, hey, I'm going through a hard time unless they ask me. And so I think it is important to be that person for others that's like, hey, how are you doing?
But how are you really doing?
Yeah, how are you really doing?
Yeah.
When giving space, so there are kids that need space, but where do you draw the line of they need space and they need help, and I need to ask them these tough questions?
I think that it's important for the child that you're talking to or the person that you're talking to recognize that if they don't want to talk about something, to make it clear. And then I think it's important to recognize if this is a serious thing, maybe reach out and get professional help. Because if you're not the adult they want to talk to, find the adult that they can talk to. And I think that's kind of a harsh reality almost for some people. And it's not that some people don't trust you. It's like a comfortable thing. It's like a security blanket where they have those adults that they want to talk to and the adults they don't want to talk to. And I think it's important that if they don't want to talk about it, to find someone that they will talk about it with.
I think
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it's important for parents and even maybe older siblings to understand that those kids, your opinion of them matters much more than you even think that it does. And so I think for them to be able to open up and tell you these hard things would be really hard for them, because they're like, oh, I want you to see me as like the best child, right? So I think, don't take it personally, really.
Manny, what do you have to say on this? You look like you want to contribute something.
Well, and they have all been really good points about the space, and you got to find who you're comfortable with, if that means getting professional help or a really close friend or family member. Just know who your most comfortable person is. And I think one thing is just have resources available, because like the giving space thing, Like you can watch for the signs and everything, like Lydia said. But I think just showing resources are available or that you're open to talk about it and just show that you're there, but you're not going to push it if they don't want to. Just know that it's available and that they're there, I think is a big thing. And and not take like that, like what Hannah said about not taking it personally, or if they don't want to speak directly to a certain person or whatever.
Yeah, again, it's
That
connecting them to that helpful, supportive adult who
yeah,
what they need.
And
Just making it available.
I would say that it's not harsh. I personally have set my staff up in a way where we're multi-ethnic, and there's both males and females. So then when we go to we have 7 different locations. So when we go to the different locations that have all different demographics, I have my staff set up in a way that I know that every kid is going to connect to at least one of us, you know? So it's not harsh at all. It is what it is.
I think students knowing just that there's an open door to somebody that they can talk to is important. Even if they don't use it, just knowing that those resources are there, like Manny said, is important.
I know we're drawing to the end of our program, and unfortunately, we're not going to have time for our audience questions. But audience will share these questions, and if things come up, we'll try to get them answered. But we appreciate your participation in this. So this concludes today's Coffee with a Purpose conversation. Our immense gratitude to Lydia, Hannah, and Manny for your candor and your vulnerability. These were not an easy topic, and things you shared, we really appreciate that. You represent the very best of Jobs for Michigan's graduates, and we could not be prouder of you or more grateful to you. And thank you to Philip Mann for joining as co-moderator on this important topic. The work you do at the Benton Harbor Boys and Girls Club is a tremendous benefit to our young people and to the larger conversation about social emotional learning and mental health. Youth Solutions is eager to partner with school districts and community-based organizations to foster belonging for youth, promote mental health, and the importance of social emotional learning in and out of the classroom. If your school or organization is interested in exploring a partnership, please visit ouryouthsolutions.org. I would also like to thank our event sponsors and funding supporters, Lions Industries, the Michigan College Access Network, Consumers Energy Foundation, United Way of Southwest Michigan, and United Way of the Lakeshore for making it possible for us to inspire and connect youth to achieve a future beyond imagination. Information on ways to support our programs can also be found on our website. And last but never least, thank you to our audience for your time, energy, and interest. A list of statewide mental health resources will be emailed to all attendees so we can all continue the conversation around mental health and help those who need support. Also, to improve future sessions, we will be sending out a request for feedback via email. And we appreciate your input as we continuously improve these conversations. Now that summer is upon us, we're going to take a brief break from our Coffee with Purpose, and we'll return in early fall. So stay safe and be healthy, everyone, and plan to join us at our next Coffee with a Purpose.
Thank you, everyone, for attending.
Thank you all.